Venture into the shadows with hosts Jordan and Ashley as they peel back the veil to reveal in-depth images into a different realm. One of strange events, places, occurrences, phenomena, and sometimes even horror. Join them as they journey through the spooky door.
In this episode, Ashley and I discuss demonic possession and exorcisms, some of the myths and lores and truths and misunderstandings of them, our own personal beliefs into possessions and why some people may get possessed. We also discuss mental health, if exorcisms work or not, and even go into the true story behind the Exorcism of Emily Rose. We talk about, did Son of Sam really get messages from his neighbor's dog who was supposedly possessed by a demon? So dim those lights and join us through the spooky door.
So before we even get started into the episode, I do have like one thing I want to share because we always share like weird, creepy, stupid stuff that we kind of happens.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's where this like whole idea of doing this podcast even originated from.
So I was like outside the other day. I was talking to my neighbor, and they're like, "Oh yeah, our friends think our the place is haunted." I'm like, "What?" Like they all think our apartment in the basement is like haunted, and we're in our basement, my basement, the creepy basement, the murder basement. And I'm like, dude, I'm in my basement all the time alone. I was like, I've never experienced one single thing. I've never even heard a weird noise. So I was like, and I've lived in haunted places before, and I'm pretty sure your place is not haunted. Because if it was, something weird would be happening with me, and like nothing ever weird happens here. And this place is 100 years old. So, okay, so possession.
I just want to clarify before we even get into anything, like so if you're going into this thinking that we're going to talk about like possession that you see in mainstream media and that's it, then that's not what we're going to talk about.
I mean, we'll definitely be talking about some movies here and there and some pop culture stuff.
Because I feel like the way it's depicted in mainstream media is not like...
Well, before we even like really get into some of the more topics, like what's your personal like views and beliefs on possession?
I feel like it's a very blanket term is my thing. It's a very blanket term because it's depicted in media specifically associating to mostly Christianity and Catholicism. So, that's how it's depicted as being associated to like Christianity, God, Christ, Satan, all that nonsense. But as far as the blanket term goes, possession, it dates back to pre-Christianity.
Well, yeah.
So I feel like it's a really blanket term, so it's hard for me to say my specific view on it because I don't want to say it doesn't exist. I don't want to say it does either. I just feel like it's personally
that's
what you're talking about, right. What you're specifically talking about.
That's the question. Like, do you believe that someone can be possessed by a demon?
That depends on what your definition of a demon is.
No.
Also, so that's why it's so hard for me to say. And I guess the reason it's hard for me to say that because people have different definitions of a demon. There's demons in...
Do you think you could be possessed by an entity? Yes or no?
Yes, I would say that. Yes, to put it simply, yes.
That's the question.
Yes. Yeah. Entity would be the proper terminology that I would probably use for that. Demon, that's a...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
that's
possessed by an otherworldly like entity.
Yes, and I don't necessarily believe though it would happen in the way you would see it in the movies at all.
No,
at all.
No. I believe in possession.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I just don't feel like it's all.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in. I've never experienced it firsthand, but I've talked to people who supposedly have been possessed, who have, fought off demons and weird shit. So
I feel like I was experiencing firsthand too. That's a hard one for me too. Like I witnessed it firsthand in the sense like we're at situations where that was believed what might have been happening. But do I personally in all of those situations believe that's what was happening? No.
Well, because you also got like mental health is a big thing about this.
There's
too.
a lot of things that
so
are
it's like-
blamed.
Like schizophrenia, like that was a big one because like no one, like especially back in like
Well, medieval times,
they didn't know
any
anything
kind
about
of mental health or like
Yeah.
neurological
demons in
disorder
your blood.
was like you have a yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You have a demon or you're a witch.
yeah, it's
And
like you got demons.
You're
and-
basically fucked.
Yeah, your demons is in your blood. Here, we're gonna bloodlet you with some leeches and
Right, we're gonna put some leeches on you. You'll be fine.
Yep, eat this cocaine and
You'll be all right. Take a nap. You'll be fine. You'll feel right as rain when you wake up.
So yeah, my personal opinion, like I believe that people can be possessed by all kinds of different things,
Right.
And I do believe that sometimes it gets miscalculated with like mental illness.
So I personally have epilepsy. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on here before. I hate when that is tried to be, people try to classify as like, oh, someone had a seizure, that's a demonic possession, or vice versa. I've even had situations where that's happened, where, you hear cases of somebody might possibly actually have some kind of possession. They're like, oh, they're just having a seizure, they have epilepsy. And I'm like,
Yep.
these are completely two different things, and I don't even know how we're meshing them, that they might be similar and we're comparing them. I feel like it's very distinct to see someone having a seizure versus something else.
So yeah, like Exorcism of Emily Rose, the actual real girl, Annalise Michel, she was clinically with epilepsy, and then her episodes were getting worse, and her family was Catholic, so they thought that she was showing signs of possession. Due to the fact that she was saying crazy stuff and
Yeah, there's like recordings of the exorcism.
Yeah. Speaking in weird tongues, speaking in languages she didn't know, supposedly hearing double voices when she spoke. But of course, all this could also happen during some kind of episode as well. So, in some regards.
I just feel like it's really hard to say one way or another sometimes, but I also don't want to be here. I don't want to misinform
Right.
things about medical diagnoses, because I feel like that's the problem sometimes is there's a lot of misinformation that is given when people are like trying to say like it wasn't possession, it was this other thing. That one I'm not really sold on either side, honestly. I don't feel like it was or it wasn't. That one's a really hard one for me to take a side with, because there's a lot of information out there that is credible to both sides of it.
So I found a recording from the actual rare unedited recordings.
They're not hard to find, though.
Yeah, just type it.
They're not fine.
It took me a 2-second Google search.
Aber es gibt kein Gehorsam. Verwirrt. Es gibt nur da oben. Nein.
Euch gibt's nur Stolz. Euch gibt's keine Liebe.
Nein, nur Hass.
Ihr hasst alle Menschen.
Ja,
Ihr hasst
wir
Gott
können überhaupt nichts anderes. Was? Drecksau.
als Affen.
Steht ja vergessen.
I'm not hearing like the double voices, but there's that like she says something and then there's like that guttural like lowness to it after she speaks.
Yeah.
But like
I feel like I think where I struggle is like when she's speaking, she's very articulated, like enunciating, and I just find that hard to believe that would be a seizure. Being somebody who has them.
Yeah, well, and also like
I personally have never
you're
talked when I've had a seizure.
Yeah, I've worked with people with disabilities. I think we've talked about this
Yes.
before. Have worked in the field for quite a while, and I've seen all kinds of seizures, and I've never seen anyone articulate while they're having a seizure. I've never seen anyone actually like talk, but I know different seizures affect people differently. Like I knew a girl who would get up and run around
Right. And I
it's
know
like-
too, like with having other types of mental things along with it, you know, maybe. But I was at that personal case, that case personally for me, it's just I've never taken a side on it, and I don't really there's so much, like I said, there's so much on each side that can back up, and I just
Well, it's because she was like
kind of just it is what it is, and I take it for what it is,
well,
but
it's-
I don't
well,
have
she
a
was
set
going.
opinion.
No, she was going to doctors and stuff like that, and her parents.
I will say I don't like the way it's depicted in the movie.
Well, yeah, the movie is very Hollywood,
The movie's very poorly depicts it as.
right? But I like that movie because I like law, like crime movies. So I like
I
the
do
fact I like the
too.
fact it's a courtroom drama.
Okay, let me to clarify. I don't think the storyline is bad. I think
How it was portrayed.
I think how it's portrayed as far as she's possessed, and then them trying to say it's medical diagnosis.
Well, that was the
and them arguing that specific, like, oh, it's not this, it's not A, B, and C, she's definitely possessed, is very poorly portrayed in the movie. And I think it is
the defense attorney is all about like it's like, oh, she clearly had a mental issue,
right.
but
I think that in the movie itself, as far as that goes, it's just very poorly portrayed. I don't think it's done in good taste.
Well, in the movie, it's clearly obviously that she was possessed.
Right.
And
I still
that's the
don't
whole
think that like the mental aspect of it is done in very good taste.
No, it's from 2005 though,
Exactly. So,
or 2006,
but
whatever
still,
it is.
even in 2006, when I saw it, I was like, I still didn't.
Right.
It never set well with me.
But there's like, I mean, there's cases of possession dating all the way back to like birth of man. so
Exactly.
It's like,
So I mean, it's
so
like it's before even the
it's-
idea of like there being a heaven and hell and God and
Right, yeah, it's-
Satan.
I mean,
Whatever. It's
it's always been like
and
different.
that's where I feel like you step outside of
right.
what mainstream media portrays it as,
Right. But
because
this
it's beyond
yeah.
that.
But I mean, this is like something that dates back forever. So
Yeah.
every type of civilization has had,
Some type of
cases of possession, or there was something wrong, or some
Right.
kind of, demonic or whatever you want to call it.
and
like
that's where I
activity.
feel like you can find more truth probably in the situations. You're saying it goes back to like way
Mm-hmm.
ancient times, which is where a lot of pagan culture is rooted. Their deities, gods, goddesses, the whole belief system that have now been turned into demons. So
Oh, yeah.
obviously there are certain entities that are depicted as like evil spirits or demons now that clearly aren't, because that's not. Beelzebub is a perfect example of that. That was originally a god. I think it was I want to say Philistine god. So it's so shrouded in now being a representation of Satan that if you even Google it, it's hard to find the original.
Yeah.
Because it's so
like-
shrouded in what the meaning is now, but that's not. So it's like, obviously, if someone was like, this person's possessed by Beelzebub and they're exorcising them, and the exorcism, the person's claiming that, then I would honestly immediately almost disbelieve that.
Well, it's just like Lilith.
Yep.
Like Lilith's like the
It's
queen
like-
of demons.
I feel like
because
that
she was
alone you
cast
can
out of Eden.
Disbelieve and be like, okay, because that's not the original. That's not where that came from.
Yeah.
So I would immediately disbelieve that.
What's that?
If somebody was like, this person's possessed by Beelzebub, and they were doing the exorcism, and the person claimed that's who was in them, I would be like, that's full shit. I would be like, no, because that's not.
A lot of times when like possession happens, it's usually, I don't know, every type of different name comes out.
Right.
Yeah,
But
like-
I'm
it's
saying
all
like
different
that
types of
specific
entities.
entity is not a demon.
Right.
If someone's
But-
claiming I'm possessed by this demon, that
then-
Christianity calls a demon, but
Yeah.
originally it's
Well,
wasn't.
that's what we're talking like. So that's what we're saying. Like instead of that's what we're saying. What I was asking earlier about an entity, not necessarily a demon,
Right,
but
right.
but anything that's
But if it was an
coming-
entity that is rooted back to pagan beliefs and cultures, and then when everything transformed over into Christianity, the churches wanted to put a lot of pagan belief into a negative light. So they would take beliefs and they would twist them and they would turn them to their favor.
I mean, it's just like same thing. They like, you know, some deities, gods and goddesses, whatever, got twisted and turned into something else.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. So if you're saying you're possessed by an entity, that's not what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, even back then, there were still bad. Like even back then, there were still.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there were things that were bad, but if you're taking something that was good and you're twisting it, and that's not at all what it is, then you're basically lying.
But if like you're getting possessed by like Loki, I would say that's a pretty bad thing.
Right, which is not like that. Then I would say because that's always been tied to that.
Yeah,
but if that's not what the original meaning was, then I'm gonna not believe that.
I still think like
say there's no truth to that because that's it's essentially what it transforms back into it's a lie because you've taken that and you've made it what it fit your ideology.
Right. Well, regardless of what name it would be, anything trying to invade into your body and take over is bad.
Right. Which I don't disagree with. But like if my point is if you're claiming that something is in your body and it's like I'm possessed by this entity, but that entity isn't a bad entity, then it's clearly not invaded your body. And I feel like in that specific, and there's other entities like that have been transformed. Like, but if somebody said, that's just my example. If somebody said, oh, hey, Beelzebub, I would be like, no, because that entity was transformed. And I don't mean like the entity itself, just the ideology of it was made into something it's not.
If you read about possessions, most of the time the whatever is possessing doesn't want to be known. It usually doesn't.
Why would you?
Yeah, it doesn't want to be known because if it is, then it's easier for something like to be found.
I guess the point I'm getting to is it's, I think it's always important to, when you're going into a situation where even if you're like watching the movies about that stuff, I feel like it's important to educate yourself.
Right.
About what
but also like
is being said, because a lot of times it's a lot of misinformation.
Right. But I also think like people who do have like mental illness, it makes it an easier doorway for things to walk
exactly.
through.
Right.
So
because
it's like,
if you're not in a good mental state, then something obviously.
It's easier
I feel like
to
that's a good example. Again, go back to our last episode about AI, but I feel like that's kind of what the situation I was in, where that was attempting to happen to me, but I'm not in I'm not in a weak mental state. So it was like, I was just like, fuck you, go away.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was a situation where that was some kind of spirit entity, whatever have you, that was looking for something to do and somebody to bother. And
when I was working for people with disabilities, and there was this girl who had schizophrenia, severe schizophrenia. Like she would look at me and she's like, "You want to slit my throat, don't you? You want to cut off my fucking head, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Whoa, no."
No.
So she
not
like,
today.
yeah,
anyway.
right. So, but then she'd be like, "There's a vampire lives under my bed. He's trying to kill me. He's going to like drink my blood and then he's going to kill me. I don't want to go home."
See, something like that, I would be more like, what?
Yeah. So then she was always talking about demons and like evil entities always around her and all this other crazy shit. And I'm like,
that would be hard if you, because who's to say that?
I'm like, I literally, I was like, she might be seeing some shit.
Right. All these things that are medically diagnosed may be true, but she also might be seeing some shit.
She's might be, and it's like, it's really hard to tell.
I think it's too like, because both things can be true, and I feel like that's sometimes in the situation too, where it's like, oh, both things can't be true. Well, why not?
Yeah, I like people with mental disabilities or people who have drug addiction. Like these are easy doorways for easy target. That's why one of the reasons why they say you're fighting your demons when you have drug addiction and stuff like that. But I mean, I've seen it. I've seen people like go through drug addiction and it's like a completely different person, and it's like something is staying around them. Like it likes that negative.
Right. I mean,
energy.
no, I know exactly what you're talking about when you are around that person. Like you can feel it. Obviously, I'm really sensitive to that type of things, and I've been around people, and There's
like-
still people I know that I don't like to be
Yeah.
around because of that. I can just like I can
it's like,
feel it,
dude,
and I know
there's
like it's
something-
just looming, and it's just like I don't feel good around it.
Like there's something attached to you, and
and I don't want anything. And then, but then
Right.
it's also hard too because it's like then you know other people that are around that person. It's like, how do you not?
Yeah.
How do you not
so
know it's there? But then you know it could have itself.
So that's why I think, like, to me, that's kind of how possession would work. It's like it finds
Right.
something they can like latch onto, and then it just lingers.
Not like in the movies. It's not like I'm gonna throw holy water on you and you're gonna be like.
Yeah, no, it's something that's like slowly
I guess
latches
that
on.
would more be a vampire.
Yeah, it's like latches on, and it slowly just starts taking over. And yeah, I think it
But
also
you know,
depends on
speaking
like
of
what your-
vampirism is like another good example of like back in the day before they could like they knew what stuff was.
Yeah.
Like they would sometimes think people were vampires and like
Oh, you have
they would
insomnia?
bury them all weird. Like they would bind, they
Yeah.
would tie their wrists and feet together and they would cut off their heads.
Yep.
And that's how they would bury them.
My favorite is the tombstones.
So that way, if they came back to life, they wouldn't be able to do anything because they wouldn't
Yep.
have a head. They
I like the ones where they have the bell on top of the tombstone because people would be buried alive on accident. They would have to ring a bell to like dig
not
them
dead,
up.
bro.
How
I'm not dead.
How terrifying would that be?
Listen, so I will tell you, like, when I was younger, that was like a legit thing that like I would just overthink about sometimes. Like, what would you do if that were such a and the whole thing that like got me like super fearful of like if that happened to me was, and I feel like this is like the best depiction I've ever seen of it on like TV or movies is if any of you have ever watched the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series, it gets to a point where she dies, and I think she officially does die, and then she comes back to life, but she's buried and she has to like dig her way out.
No.
And it's like it's
Yeah,
pretty like
I had that fear too when I was a kid. I was so afraid of being buried alive.
right.
Like
but
thinking, like, oh no,
why?
I don't know. I think that's like, you know, when you're a
Like
kid.
for me, I'm like, why? Why?
You know, when you're a kid, you have like irrational fears.
Oh,
Like,
all the
and
time. I
it's like-
remember like laying in bed when I was a kid, when I was probably about like 7 or 8, and like thinking about like, you know, because when you're young, around that age is when you first start to learn about, because when you're really little, you know, like things die, but you don't fully know what that means. And then you get to the age where you fully understand what that means. And I remember like laying in bed, like when I first learned what that fully meant, and just getting fearful about the fact that like I would not exist anymore. Like I just wouldn't. I would just. And I remember like the thing that I would always think to it was like, you know, because you know when you're little, you only know so many people, and like I just learned about like presidents and George Washington. I was like George Washington is like he's just a name now. Like, but you like. You know, it's like you're not
Yeah.
actually there, and that was so fearful for me as a child. Like I just like, but like now that I'm thinking about it as an adult, like George
Yeah.
Washington was the example. I don't know why I would
Yeah.
think about immediately that, but fun story. You know, but again, like even when you're little, that just goes to show that even as a child, like you know, a lot of times a possession and things like that is associated with adults,
Yeah.
but it just goes to show you that even children like can have moments
Well-
where like you're weak, because like there are cases where it's like they say children are possessed.
Well, I think like children can naturally just are attuned to more things, and then as you age, you get out of it.
Absolutely.
You know.
I think that's the movie that's the reason that makes the movie The Sixth Sense so like
Yeah, because
creepy,
like
because this child's very
that-
in tune to something.
Yep.
So it always makes you wonder if like,
because I know like
you know, it's like I feel like that's why it's really important when a kid tells you anything to like not question it, because there's always some kind of truth there.
Well, like
always.
one of my friends, yeah, she was telling me about some crazy shit that was going on at their house and weird stuff. And she was telling me about the stuff that their son was saying and seeing. And then I was talking to her husband. I was like, dude, just don't be neglectful about it.
Right.
I was like, just like, even though it sounds totally irrational and totally insane, I was like, don't dismiss him or be like rude about it, because that's what my parents did. And it like will fuck you up.
Listen, I'm around kids all day, and I'm just waiting one of these days for one of them to tell me something where I'm just like, the fuck did you just say to me?
Yeah.
Like, you saw a ghost, didn't you?
Yeah, it's like
Well, I'm not going to tell them that because it'll scare the shit out
Yeah,
of them.
it's
But
like-
I'm waiting. One of these days, one of them is going to tell me something, and I'm just going to be like, okay.
yeah, that always pissed me off. That always drove me crazy when I find out about people. Oh, you're just imagining it. It's like
Right.
Like maybe they are, but you shouldn't just
Right.
be dismissive
Well, it's like I
of
said,
it.
I can tell you, like, I teach and I'm around kids all day, and like there's always like even the most nonsensical thing that they'll tell you, there is some kind of truth to it. Like they're
Right.
getting it from somewhere, some thought in their head or something that they've seen or they felt that they've interpreted. Sometimes, and they've interpreted not the right way because they don't understand the same things, or they see it for what it is, and we're adults and we're just so jaded that we don't see it for what it is.
Right.
Which I think is the worser of the two, that we're so jaded sometimes that we can't see the things that they see.
Dude, we didn't even talk about like going back to like demons and like possessions and all that stuff. Like Japan.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's like a huge part of
So
their culture.
that's-
That's like
ooh,
norm.
I
That's
would-
like
Listen,
yeah, like,
because that is like a huge part of their belief system. Like,
yeah, their whole culture, like that type of stuff, like possessions, ghosts. That's just like
it's
every day.
normal.
That's like
it's
so
like
normal.
there's
to them.
yeah, and they're very accepting of it,
Yeah.
and like they're just like, we leave offerings out for this person, and then we talk to them sometime, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I think it's, and when I say I love it because I feel like it's very healthy,
Yeah, like there's just so like
and I
open-
110% believe them.
Yeah, they're so open to it. It's just like, okay, it's like this is just part of it, like whatever.
This is part of life. This is
Yeah.
very normal, and
Yeah, and it's like here, it's like if you're into any type of weird,
you're weird.
you're weird.
You're
it's
weird.
Like, oh, you've had weird experiences. You're
And
weird.
you're
or
weird, and
ooh,
you don't know what you're talking about, or you're a liar, or
Yeah, it's
you're
like
a cuckoo pants,
yeah, that's
or you're, I don't know. I can tell you the billion names I was called in school. So
yeah. But then it's like, and then you talk to more people, and everyone's like more accepting of it. It's just like it's so like taboo to talk about. But then when you start talking to people, like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. Oh, I had this experience, or I did this. Or,
I feel like also
or
as an
whatever.
adult, I've noticed I just have to be careful who I talk to about these things, like because some people aren't accepting of it.
I've gotten to the point where I don't even care. I'll just talk to anyone about it. But that's just me, though. I'm like really.
I don't because, but I feel like again with our backgrounds being different,
Yeah.
and I know that there's certain environments that I've personally been in where it's just it'll turn into an argument that I'm not even going to have because I'm not going to waste my time on it.
Well, mine's not really an argument. I always just open up the floor, just being like, "Oh, you tell me some stories, or what have you experienced?" It's
Right.
like people always want to like, "Oh, what have you experienced?" I'm like, "Oh, like, what have you experienced?" Like, I'm not trying to let's not do a one-up contest. I just want to know.
Well, no, not
what's
even
your
that.
story.
But there's
Yeah.
people who like don't believe it, or and they've not experienced it, and they just, those are the people that
Yeah,
I try
there's-
not to have conversations with.
I don't know. I like having conversations with those people. It's not like, but I don't want to open up a debate or like argument. I'm just like, no, tell me your views. Like, why?
I'm not to say
like-
that their views don't
Yeah.
matter. They absolutely do. Everybody's, as long as your opinion or beliefs aren't hurting anyone or yourself,
yeah,
good for you. But yeah, I don't want to like.
and I've talked to them like because I've talked to people.
I
Quite
just
often,
don't want
and
the
I'm like,
people specifically that I just don't want to like. I know they're gonna argue. I'm just not doing it. I mean,
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't like arguing, but I'm just like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
like,
whatever.
why is your view your opinion? But
I mean, everybody has a
Yeah.
reason, but yeah. I mean, just to go with that, same thing. There's a reason you and I have the beliefs we do
Yeah.
and why we're doing this
Yeah.
because we've experienced things. And,
right, like,
and I feel like too, like a lot of supernatural, paranormal things can tie back into what we're talking about,
Right.
like evil spirits and. A lot of cases
Like
where
negative
hauntings,
energy.
yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of
like,
hauntings. Sometimes
yeah.
that's what they are.
like when I'm saying like possession, I'm literally talking about like negative, bad
Right.
things.
But that's that's what I mean. A lot of cases of like hauntings and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
what was the thing you were looking up earlier about somebody who was like a murderer? Who was it?
oh, Son of Sam.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
what it was. This
yeah.
one's great though.
So Son of Sam, reason why he killed people in New York in the 70s, he said his neighbor's dog was possessed by a demon and it was telling him what to do.
But let's be honest, that's a scenario where he was just a straight crazy pants.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you're a demon and you're going to get somebody to murder them, you're not going to do it through a talking dog.
Maybe.
But now that I say it out loud, like I'm thinking about it, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah, so that's my thing. I was like, you said that, and I was like, actually, that might be a great way of doing it because no one's going to believe the person.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, this sounds like the plot to like some really weird supernatural but good manga series that you would just pick up. Where like this person's a murderer because their their neighbor's talking dog tells them to kill people.
Shit.
I'm just like, I can see that. It's a manga now.
Yeah,
I can see that because a lot of them are weird like that, but like in the best way possible.
But a lot of people who have done murders have claimed to be under like demonic possession or something like that. I mean, a lot of people say there was some kind of thing that was making them do it or something like that.
Right. Which I find interesting though, because like,
and
you almost want to like sit down with those people and ask, like, some of those people I would like love to sit down and be like, and just see what to like depth do you believe this, or was this just a way for you to not have to face what you did?
Right. I don't know. Yeah.
And admit, because like, a lot of times there are too, like, where they're like, they'll straight up be like, yeah, I did it and I enjoyed it. But then I feel like some people, it's just like, they can't admit that. Or were you really possessed and they wanted you to kill all these people? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
I don't know.
That's like, I feel like that's a whole nother episode of like,
yeah, what
killers that were possessed.
That's like our top 10.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's killers that were possibly possessed.
Maybe that's our
or
next,
like claimed to be possessed.
Maybe that's our next top 10 YouTube video.
I know, but imagine that being like an evil entity or a demon that you're just like, you get done possessing somebody else and you're like, what am I going to do next? I'm bored. Let's murder some people.
All right. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, man.
Day in the life of a demon.
We are laughing about the most darkest shit.
Well, I'm done making this person depressed. Let's go make this other person murder people.
Fuck. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm sorry, we're laughing at a very dark thing just because I'm trying to not like
cry.
I'm trying to not think about how dark it actually is.
I would put money on this has happened. So,
but I personally think like outside of that, stepping back into like the smaller things that leech to people, I think those are the more scarier ones because it's like those are the ones that you don't always know are there.
And like,
because I feel like that's where it's doing the most harm because it can consume the person and they don't know it's there.
I feel like the type of entities that are doing that, or demons, or ghosts, or whatever you want to say, I would say some possession. I don't think it was a ghost or someone who was alive. I think it's something that was never from this like realm.
Right.
It's like
and that could be like
whatever it is. It's not from this realm. So that's would be my belief. But like,
well, yeah, absolutely.
So the things that are possessing people, I look at them like very low level bullshit.
Right. That's exactly what I think happened to me that one time. It was just like low level bullshit, and that's why it was so easy to get rid of because I was just like, fuck off, man.
I don't because to me it's like. I'm just gonna say it. So it's like, let's use Satan as an example. Okay, you got possessed by Satan. I don't see Satan possessing people. I just don't feel like he would. That just seems like it's like the head honcho,
right?
So it's like the main. Like I would see it more as like some shitty little peon demon thing. That's the thing that's like those are the things that are fucking like getting into people.
Right.
If they are, or if people are being possessed.
Because they need to get some cred, man.
Like,
they gotta get
so
some
it's
cred.
like
so they're like, I gotta do all this shit to get some cred.
Yeah.
I legit feel like that's what it is.
Yeah, it's like,
but then I feel like also like where I struggle is because it's to your example, like there's the whole idea, I guess, to put it simple as an example again, heaven and hell, like there's good and evil. I don't feel like it's always that simple.
No, it's not.
It's not that simple. There's I feel like that's a very simplistic mentality, a very specific human mentality, and I feel like anything that, like you're saying, not of this realm, like doesn't have that simple mindset.
Right. But anything that's trying to get into
But like, yeah, there's some
something,
straight up
it's just-
evil
it's
shit.
just
Yeah,
like-
there's straight up evil shit. But like, yeah, just wanted to also throw that out there. I
'Cause
don't think it's
I've-
ever that simple. But yeah, there is stuff that's straight up evil.
'Cause I've experienced it.
Same.
It's fucking terrifying.
Same. Oh yeah, that was. I
Like-
cannot tell you how like when I had that thing like lurching over my bed, how I was like,
Yeah.
I was just like immediately closed my eyes because that was the only thing that I was like just closed my eyes and turned over because I was like, I don't want to look at it.
No.
I don't want to look at it. I know it can't hurt me, but I don't want to look at it.
Yeah, and then like things that happen and just like negative energy just builds and builds and builds. Something happened and it just lingers and stays and then it just knows nothing but anger.
Right.
Like there's so much of that.
But then and then I feel like there's also the situations you talked about earlier where it's like hard because it's like you see situations where it's like, oh, this is a possession and it's not.
Yeah,
It's sometimes I feel like it's an excuse.
well, yeah, and then there's also the whole mental health.
Right.
issue,
It's
'cause,
again,
like,
I've
'cause,
seen
like-
that. I've seen that and I'm like, that's not healthy.
yeah, going back to like schizophrenia. I'm like schizophrenia is super messed up. I would not wish that on anybody.
And it's I think the problem there too is I wouldn't, schizophrenia, any type of personality disorder like that. And I think to be like, oh, it's a possession and we need to do an exorcism it's very insulting and hurtful to the people that have it. Because
Right.
there are people that like deal with this every day. And I feel like the most like eye-opening thing for me is when I was like really into this a few years back, where you can get on YouTube and you can like look up people that have it and deal with it from day to day and like how they change from one person to another.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's like life for them. So I mean, it's not like but it's like saying they're possessed is almost like saying they're evil or bad in some sort of way. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true. Like
I worked.
they
with
just they're struggling.
I worked with a girl had Down syndrome, and they gave her an exorcism because she had schizophrenia too, and she was never the same after that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where the problem comes, where it's
Right.
not healthy.
Her
and
family
it's
was
not.
super religious, so they were like, "Oh, this is what needed to fix her," and it just messed up things even worse. It's like,
Yeah, and I feel like that's what it would
Like,
do. That's
yeah.
exactly what it would do if you
like, can you imagine like the
If you were
psychological,
to a
like
state-
psychological trauma of
Right.
going through an exorcism?
when you don't. I feel like, especially if you're in a mental state where you
Yeah.
don't even understand what's happening.
Yeah,
to
it's like you don't even understand like exactly like what is going on, and you're going through this really fucking intense like situation. It's like,
Also, shame on the person that did that exorcism too.
yeah.
Like that's
I guess it was
also
I don't know the full story of how it like who they got and what the situation. I just know the family was very religious, and that was their way of trying to solve the situation.
like I said, especially I think that's the most harmful thing if like you're in a mental state and you don't even know, like you don't understand what's happening to you and someone's like doing that to you. Like, of course that's gonna make things worse for
Yeah.
you. That's
I don't know.
I don't know. What's your opinion on exorcism in general, though? Like, is that even something you think is like should be done? Because I will tell you, one of my struggles with it is like
So
the idea of exorcising someone because you think there's something wrong with them, but that person does not hold the same religious beliefs. That's where I think the big struggle comes in.
this is a very. I mean, this is a very controversial
Yes,
topic. I mean,
kinda taboo here.
Yeah, talking about
That's why I don't like.
exorcism.
I like.
There's a documentary on Netflix about a guy who works for the Vatican, and he has done like over 100 some odd exorcisms. And they did a documentary on him. I believe it's on Netflix. I think it's like The Father and the Devil or something like that.
But on May 1st, 2016, Father Gabriella Amort, the Vatican exorcist, invited me to witness an actual exorcism. I had no idea what to expect.
I feel like I know what you're talking
And-
about.
It was super fascinating because like these people we're going through this shit, and after he's done, they're like back
Which
to normal.
so that's my thing.
So
I
it's
don't
like-
want to say no,
Yeah,
not
that's
at all,
what
but
my-
like
that's-
sometimes I feel like
Well, that's
yeah.
why most professional exorcists, and they do exist.
Right. That's a job you can have.
There is that. It is not something that's done very lightly.
Right.
It's
I know they
not
have to get like
something- yeah.
approval. It has to be like
Yeah, it
submitted
has
to
to be, like,
the Vatican and they have to get approval.
Yeah, like it is, and like the guy in the documentary, like he like goes and checks these people out, and he's like, yeah, either yes or no, and he's even like talked to the same demon before. Like they walk in and they
I
recognize.
know exactly what you're talking about. I've watched
he's
this.
walked
Yes,
in
I
and
watched
like
this.
they recognized him as soon as he walked in
Yeah.
the door.
And
It's
they were like, oh, bro, I'm
geez.
fucked.
Yeah, it's like holy crap.
This guy's going to get me.
So
I
I guess
say,
it's one of those things. if
again, it's not black and
done-
white.
Yeah, if
That's what I have to say about it.
it's done right, I guess.
If it's done right and I feel like the person actually knows what they're doing,
yeah.
then okay. But I feel like, yes, there are a lot of situations where it's not.
Right.
And that's
Because
not okay.
yeah.
And I feel like it does work if like, I feel like that's the big thing. Like if you're within that belief system, I guess, I feel like it wouldn't be effective if you were trying to like, I don't know. I'm not an exorcist. I don't know anything about it. I just feel like personally, I feel like if that wasn't the person's personal belief, it might not be as effective. I wonder.
That's
yeah,
I
because they're not
agree.
going to believe.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That anything that you hold any power over them, and I feel like whatever was inside them would take advantage
Yeah.
of that.
But
Again, I think it's not black and white. There's a lot of stuff here that's just not black and white. And I feel like that's the reason I wanted to do the episode, because I feel like sometimes it's a lot of time in mainstream media, it's presented as very black and white, and it's not at all.
No,
and that's
it's-
really, that was my big motivation for wanting to do this, because it's not. There's so many little areas
Yeah.
and pockets and stuff. And
and there's even different types of like exorcism. Even voodoo has an exorcism like
Ooh,
thing. So,
yeah.
So I mean, like,
listen. I feel like those are like, I think it is extremely fascinating. And voodoo in general is, again, another thing in mainstream media
yes.
that is extremely, I would say extremely, I'm going to like emphasize extremely misrepresented.
well, yeah. So, in like even in Muslim terms, they have exorcisms, and actually there's more of a contemporary now aspect to it. But they believe, like, you know, you can get possessed by a jinn. Like that's a huge part of their like,
yeah.
So like that's a huge part of it. So they like
That happens
and-
in the TV show Supernatural.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the same thing. It's not at all, because I'm sure that that's not the premises they were using, but that does happen.
Yeah. So a jinn, of course, is a genie.
If you don't know, Jen is a genie.
But a very evil one.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with jinns.
Yeah. We're not like thinking when we say genie, we're not like Robin Williams and Aladdin.
No.
Sorry, but that's not. It's
It's more like the monkey paw type deal. You wish for something and it's gonna go really bad.
Oh man,
Yeah.
shit! I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
The monkey paw.
So yeah, it's like, but yeah, we're saying like, you know, so voodoo has one, Christianity has one.
I feel like every
every
and this ties
Muslim
back
has
to
one,
what we
yeah.
said at the
Islam
beginning
has one,
about
yeah.
like different cultures that predate Christianity have that belief. And I feel like if, you know, pre-Christianity, again, if you're rewinding that far back and every culture has some sort of belief like that, it clearly has some truth.
Well,
to
like
it.
even like
it clearly has some truth.
even Greece, you know, they would be fearful of being possessed by one of the gods.
My people.
What's that?
I said my people.
Yeah,
My
like-
family's. I
know.
told you my family's very
Yeah,
Greek. on
yeah,
my
you told
dad's
me.
side.
Yeah.
Very Greek.
Yeah, so it's like even in Greece, you know, people be afraid or even claim that they were possessed by certain like gods.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's one of
Like,
my favorite things that I
sorry,
was
I
actually
cheated.
reading about that actually wanted me to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I was
Sorry, I cheated on my wife. I was possessed by Zeus.
right. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
That's funny
So
because he did that.
Yes.
He was
Yeah.
in the banging the ladies.
I guarantee you that was
All the ladies too. All the ladies.
I'm sure people use different gods for different reasons.
Oh
back
yeah,
in
I'm
those
sure
days.
back then,
Oh,
like they
jeez.
were probably that was a way to excuse
Mm.
behavior, even if like it straight up wasn't true. Like, maybe sometimes it was, but I feel like that was a lot of like, I can take advantage of this.
Right. Yeah. And then people would be like, whoa.
Sorry. Sorry, I banged your wife. I was possessed by Zeus.
Right.
It wasn't me, it was Zeus. You should be mad at him. Oh wait, you can't because he's like the main dude.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've covered possessions, exorcisms, demons, entities, none of this world.
Okay. I think at this point we're just gonna stop the conversation of possession. I feel like we've covered a lot of stuff. There's a lot more things we could cover, but I feel like this is a really good stopping point. But if there's anything we haven't covered that you would like us to cover, you can let us know. Or even if you have any thoughts or opinions of your own that you'd like to share with us, obviously let us know that as well. We'd love to hear from you guys.
You can find us on social media using the Spooky Door. You can, if you're watching it on YouTube, please like, share, subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts on all this.
We do respond to comments.
Yes, we do.
We'll talk to you.
And if you are listening to this on your podcast platform, please leave us a 5-star rating. We much appreciate it. If you go to spookydoor.com, you can find our merch and stuff like that.
We also have an Instagram that we've been posting on a lot more.
Right. So, yeah, that's all we have for this episode. Journey with us next time through the Spooky Door.
Ha ha ha!